issues. If you look back over time, they have historically always been bipartisan. When it came to adding revenues to the road use tax system in the 80s, I think we did it on 3 different occasions. On each of those occasions, it was a bipartisan effort. The same thing, the local option infrastructure school tax was an effort by Christopher Rance, as a matter of fact, to pursue something in the area of education. We're willing to work with Republicans in a bipartisan way on that, and we look forward to working with them. I think there are a lot of Republicans that want to work on bipartisan solutions to problems. That local option infrastructure tax would provide some equity across school districts in the state of Iowa and would supply a dependable revenue stream to deal with the school infrastructure needs.
I would even go one step further. On the silo bill, if you go back to when the year the bill was passed, the lead sponsor's name, I think, was Rance, and about the 3rd or 4th name on the sheet of paper was Murphy, and they were in the majority at the time. So, I mean, it was a bipartisan effort to deal with silo during the 80s. It was the same thing with the gas tax. I wasn't here then when they did those, but they were very much bipartisan efforts. On the silo bill, that was very much bipartisan. If you were counting 51 votes in either party, it wasn't going to happen. And there's no question that the details will have to be worked out if it involves, whether it involves property tax relief, whether or not this is a 10-year proposal like the bill currently allows for the voters to set up. Those are things that we'll have to discuss, but Democrats are willing to work on those issues even in an election year because we think it's the right thing to do to push the state forward.
So you would consider silo this time? Because it seemed like at the end of last session.
Well, Rod, if you remember, we did pass, and I did give Roger Wendt the approval in the House last year to run that bill out of education. We ran it over to Ways and Means. We weren't able to get an agreement on both sides of the aisle on taking up that bill. But Democrats last year were very interested in taking that bill up. There was actually movement on that bill moving through the process. The bill's currently in Ways and Means. That's a bill that we would have to bring out of the Ways and Means Committee, but we would look forward to working with the Republicans in that venue.
How about property tax?
Well, I think property tax will play a piece on that bill. Or are you talking about commercial property tax?
Right, will you do something this session?
We have yet to caucus on that yet today, but Representative Wise, Representative Tyler Olson, and Representative Shopshore have been working on that, and there are definite possibilities of, that committee meets for 2 years, but they also have come up with some reasonable proposals that we think we could run by our caucus and possibly do a bill this year. And so we are going to discuss that later today, but that's very much on the table.
Is it similar to what the Senate was looking at, or do you have?
No, it'll be a different proposal than what the Senate proposed.
Can you give us any?
Well, it's actually the proposal that they brought forward was Jim Prosser's proposal from Cedar Rapids. I think that's very definitely a possibility. Where instead of becoming so heavily reliant on property taxes, we take a look at other fees or taxes that cities, they would still have to pass them at the local level, but the goal would be to set up a menu. And this would be done on a pilot project only. It wouldn't be something that we do statewide and have them report back in a year as to how well this works. But then along with that, they would have to do a dollar-for-dollar reduction in commercial and industrial property taxes. We're not going to give them new fees and taxes to raise them people. Our goal is to become less reliant on property taxes in the state. So our goal would be to have a dollar-for-dollar reduction in people's property taxes if we allow additional fees that they could collect.
Is that something the Senate? One more?
It'd certainly be something we'd be willing to consider.
Now, the governor's office has said that they're asking their state agencies to submit zero growth budgets for next year. The idea being that by the time you pay for all of the promises that you made for teacher salary and preschool and K-12 education, that they're going to be about $200 million short. We've only got about 3% revenue growth coming up. So that they said from the governor's point of view, they intend to keep those promises for teachers, preschool, and so forth, but that other state agencies, including universities and community colleges, will have to likely face status quo budgets. So should we expect status quo budgets for regions and community colleges in spite of what you're saying about all those nice things you're getting?
I think globally, the perspective going into this session tied into last session's spending is as follows. We took over 11 months ago. There was a series of things we campaigned on, raising teacher pay from 42nd to 25th in the country, expanding access to health care, and more of a focus on early childhood education and more of a focus on renewable energy. We made those promises, we fulfilled those promises, and we did it in a fiscally responsible way. We did spend more money because we had some holes that we were trying to dig ourselves out of. Moving forward to this year, the reality is as follows. We believe we will have the resources available to maintain the historic commitments that we made last year and to do it in a fiscally responsible way, maintaining our cash reserves at their maximum level and continuing to reduce budgeting from the past. It is true there probably will not be the resources available to enter into some sort of new program like a power fund, for example. I'm not making any bones that we'll be able to do such programs, but we think we'll be able to maintain the commitments we made, do it in a fiscally responsible way. And for an initial salvo, we won't know for sure until the next few months, but the initial salvo, the governor has asked the department heads to submit a relative status quo budget, but that does not preclude us from making sure we fully fund the salary bill or trying to do some other things. There will be some resources available, but we're going to have to prioritize if we're going to maintain the commitments we made last year. But we think that while the budget may be tighter than we would like, we're going to be able to maintain the commitments and have a good, strong, balanced budget.
As it relates to new revenue, the Republicans put out a press release saying you're sort of doing it up and running. You're in the leadership role now in all three facets of the two chambers and the governorship. That if you want to be the leaders that lead on this issue, don't sit around and talk, and it's got to be bipartisan.
Well, that's pretty interesting coming from Christopher Rance. Listen, we're prepared, and we think Iowans want us to work together. We think that's what they want, that's what they expect. We think that's what the history on some of these issues is. When the Republicans took control in the House and in the Senate, we didn't sit around and go, oh, this is a Chris Rance idea, therefore it's bad and we'll be against it. When they're good ideas, we work together, and we helped them pass that legislation. So we look forward to working with them. We think there's plenty of reasonable people in both the Senate Republican Caucus and the House Republican Caucus, and that's what we're going to look for. We'll look for ways to work together to solve problems that face Iowa, not to play politics.
And I'd like to just expound further on what Senator Gronstal said. The bottom line is, as I mentioned, the silo bill was something that was very bipartisan. But when we made decisions in the past, it was, we didn't make, last year when we watched most of these bills being debated in the House, there was 51, 52, 53 votes, and there was 53 Democrats. Early childhood, 54 votes. 1 Republican and 53 Democrats voting for an early childhood bill. I think most Iowans would agree that 4-year-olds should have access to quality preschool. And for some reason, Republicans decided that was a really, really bad idea, or they decided we're just going to be partisan because this was the Democrats' idea and it should have been our idea. It doesn't matter which party comes up with the ideas. The goal is to try to incorporate them into good public policy for the future. And so that's what we're trying to do. We're just pointing out that in the issue with the gap, or with road fund dollars and infrastructure for that, we're dealing with education. Those issues in the past have been bipartisan. Our goal is to try to make them bipartisan this session. Not everybody's going to be for a statewide penny, and so it's going to take both sides of the aisle to get something passed. But putting the state forward first is putting the state that's putting its citizens before party politics, and that's the way it should be.
Any discussion here, fair share?
Yeah.
Is that
We're going to have discussions about fair share here in the future.
Thank you. State President.
State President. Oh.
I think there's strong interest in our caucus in proceeding with some state prison stuff. I think those discussions, what the parameters of that would be, kind of remain to be seen, but real interest in rebuilding our maximum security prison in Fort Madison. Yes?
Can you somewhat outline what you see as the road infrastructure needs, or how you see it?
We asked the Transportation Department to do a study. They did a study. They came back. They identified about $27 billion in infrastructure needs. They came and narrowed that down to like $4 billion in specific. They came to us with a set of recommendations saying $200 million a year for the next 20 years would deal with that $4 billion kind of critical infrastructure need out